You can't be too enthusiastic or I'll forget myself. You know, it's election time, and 99% of my life now is, besides being a grandfather, is spent with my foundation. And Hillary and Chelsea and I do what we can to make America and the world a better place. And we work with Democrats and Republicans and people all over the world. But at election time, I feel like a retired racehorse. And they got me living in a barn, you know, and about a month before the election, they show up and bring me an extra bale of hay. And then somebody starts brushing my coat, and then they haul me out to the track and slap me on the rump just to see if I can get around that track one more time. And, I am delighted to be here. I want to thank Congresswoman Glenmore for being here. Mayor Tom Barrett, thank you. County Executive Chris Avery. Senator John Lemon, nominee for Lieutenant Governor. And I want to say a special word of thanks and gratitude to a man who was a great public servant of Wisconsin, of America, and a very, very close friend of Hillary's and mine, Senator Herb Cole. Thank you very much for being here. I was talking to Mary before we came out, and I'd like to say something to you born of my experience as a president, creating jobs, and as a governor for a dozen years. When I came to Wisconsin asking you to vote for me in 1992, our state led the country in job growth, or was second in job growth in every month of that year. There was a report saying that in the previous 14 years, our state of South Carolina had improved our schools more than anybody else. The main job of every governor in an economically distressed time is to create jobs, improve the job mix so that the wages rise, train people to do the jobs, and educate and prepare the children to succeed. That is the main work of a governor. And so, the first thing I'd like to tell you is that I know I've got more yesterdays than tomorrows, but the more that happens to you, the more you think about tomorrow. I love being governor. I never would have gotten tired of it. And I love being president. Even the bad days were good because you could make something good happen if you remember that it is a job. And we know something about what works in making decisions in complicated competitive environments. What works is when you get everybody together and you work together on a common goal. What works too often in elections is driving a stake between various segments of the community, try to get people all torn up and upset, have steam coming out of your ears, and just vote against something. You can't afford to vote against something. You need to vote for something. All right. You need to vote for something. Now look. Let's start with where we are. This will not, unfortunately for my party and a lot of good people, have much impact on the election right now, but it's important that you know where we are. America is coming back. We have, since the financial crash in September of 2008, created more jobs in the United States than Europe and Japan combined. And if you look at 150 years of experience in wealthy countries around the world, when there's a financial crash, it's horrible. What happened to us in 2008 was horrible. Every place it happens, it's horrible. People are afraid to borrow. People are afraid to lend. People are afraid to take a chance. People are afraid to buy things. People are at risk of losing their homes. This is an old story. It's happened a lot. We had crashes in America in 1872, 1892, 1932. Japan had a horrible one in 1990. And on average, in 150 years, it takes 10 years just to regain the jobs you lost. The United States made it in 6 years and 1 month. We are 4 years ahead. Now, but the big question is, how are we going to make the most of this? How do we propose to go forward? And it's an especially big question for Wisconsin because you are still almost 50,000 jobs short of where you were when the crash occurred. And most of the catch-up was in the states that had a lot of energy-related jobs. So you're not the only ones. So you've got to decide, okay, we're back. Now what are we going to do with this? We got a chance to start again. We got a chance to rebuild America. Are we going to do it together based on shared opportunities, shared prosperity, shared access to education and training? We're all in one community. We're going up together. Or are we going to go back to trickle-down economics, which has failed every single time we've done it? Now, it is a choice because it's a job. Would you rather have Mary being governor with her commitment, with her commitment to put more money not only into basic education but into training at a time when we are filling job openings at only half the rate of previous periods like this, because we have allowed, and we all bear some responsibility for this, me too. We, over 40 or 50 years, we've allowed too much division to grow between what is academic learning and what is practical learning. We've got to put it back together so people can actually be employable when they finish their school. So, would you rather adopt our program on that or go back to a trickle-down tax cut that's already failed you for 4 years? I mean, these are really simple choices once you decide what the job of governor is. You want a governor who will get you more jobs. You want a governor who will get you better paying jobs and change the job mix. And you want a governor who will prepare people for the workforce of tomorrow, that will enable you to continue to change the economic mix, that will enable more families, the age of the young people in this audience, to do what Mary and her family did with the great company they built. And if you look at who's the best qualified to do that, this is not a hard decision. To read about the job she had with her family company and what was the nature of the work she did, and how she went overseas into countries where she didn't speak the language and convince them to buy what she was producing, to know that those are the skills you need in a governor now. Sometimes at election time, we like people that just get us all fired up. But I was kidding with my high school classmates last weekend. I went to my 50th high school year. And look at this. And we were just all talking about the election and what all was going on, all these negative ads. And I said, you know, people have been trying to sell us stuff for 60 years now. I mean, you think about it. As soon as you start watching television, you watch those ads, somebody's trying to say something. And then now that I'm a civilian again, I answer my own phone and I get these little automated messages, people trying to sell me something. Once in a while somebody knocks on the door, they're trying to sell me something. It's been my experience that if people try to sell you something by stopping you from thinking, they do not have your best interest at heart. You watch these out-of-state ad wars, you know, they don't have your best interest in mind. And it won't be here on Wednesday morning after the election. But she's been here all her life. She'll be here Wednesday morning. She'll be the governor-elect if you do the right thing. She wants to do the right things. No cuts in education. Invest in more education. Invest in more training. Make it easier for people to go to college and stay there, not harder. And let me tell you that this debate they had over the minimum wage is about way more than a minimum wage. What did her opponent say that said the minimum wage served no purpose? Now, I know something about that too. I raised it as governor, I raised it as president, I tried to raise it a second time as president, I couldn't convince the Republicans to vote for it a second time. And here's what I know. If you raised it to $20 an hour tomorrow, it would put a real burden on small business and cause a real problem. No one proposes that. But if you raise it so you keep up with inflation, you don't just raise the incomes of people on the minimum wage. Millions and millions of other Americans that are just above there, they get a pay raise too. And because they're working for a living and they have monthly expenses, they pretty much spend whatever they get in their income. So they buy more stuff from other people. Then the people that sell them stuff, they have to go order stock to replace it. So somebody produces that. And before you know it, you've turned that money over in the economy so much, you're lifting America from the bottom up. You're lifting Wisconsin from the bottom up. And we've got to restore the mobility of the American dream. We've got to grow this economy from the middle class out. We've got to make it stronger. We've got to make working class people able to continue to improve their lot. And we've got to give poor people a chance to work their way into the middle class again. I don't want to bore you with a lot of numbers because I'm bad to do that, but I'm going to give you one. People ask me from time to time, they say, well, what are you proudest of when you were president? The 22.7 million jobs or the 4 balanced budgets? And I said, no. The thing I'm proudest of was that as compared with President Reagan's term, we created 45% more jobs, but 100 times, listen to this, 100 times as many people work their way from poverty into the American middle class. That's the way this economy should work. And so, if I were a moderate Republican, I'd vote for Mary Burke for governor. Because I'd rather have somebody who knew what it takes to build a small business into a bigger one and hired people and took them along for the ride on fair terms than somebody that thought we had to give more away to people who are already powerful whether they create jobs in our state or not. I'd rather do that. So that's why I want to tell you something, folks. The whole country's watching this race because her opponent got a lot of headlines in the last 4 years, all related to conflict. She didn't make so many headlines because in her business and in her public service, she's been about cooperation. But I'm just telling you, I did this for a long time. I was a governor for 12 years. I was president for 8 years. I could fill this room with the studies that show that diverse groups that work together make better decisions than homogeneous small groups or even geniuses acting alone. So, what you really have to do in this election is define what you think a governor's supposed to do.
All right.
You're 50,000 jobs behind where the country now is.
Right. Yes.
You had the slowest job growth rate in the Middle West of 10 states. And it doesn't make any sense. You've got a great university network, you've got enough population diversity, you've got enough youth in your workforce, you've got all the assets in the world. You've got a great agricultural economy. Your people work like crazy. You've got all the assets in the world. What you don't have is a political system devoted to maximizing your assets, minimizing your problems, and getting people together to actually get the show on the road instead of fighting all the time. And so I'd like to get an invitation to the inauguration of Governor Mary Burke. Wisconsin's been good to me. You voted for me twice. I appreciate it. The only gift I can give you back is to tell you I did the work that the next governor will have to do. For 12 years as governor, for 8 years as president. And I'm telling you, based on their approach, their attitude, their skills, their record, this should not be a close race. And you've got to go make sure that people think just because there's no presidential race on the ballot, they can stay home. You've got to change that. You've got to get everybody out. And elect Mary Burke, Governor of Wisconsin. Thank you and God bless you.